Hello my friends. So I'm back again with another video this week, but I don't want to just do videos for the transits of the week for every sign, because this week there's not that much that I feel is that important. There's a Mars Neptune opposition, and I don't think that we really need to go through every sign talking about that. A lot of people probably are, and that's good. But what I wanted to do was talk about basically how I look at transits when I'm looking at a chart. So like people ask, like, what are you doing when you are doing a reading? So there's a lot of things that I'm doing when I'm doing a reading, but one of the major things, besides just looking at the chart and seeing, okay, what is the lay of the land, what is happening here, what I will do first is think what transits are happening right now to impact those natal placements. So if the chart itself is a blueprint, like a screenshot of the sky when you were born, and that's always going to be that way, there's planets, obviously moving constantly, and what they are doing in angle to what you have in your chart is what we call a transit. Like, how is it relating to what you have natally in your birth chart? So, and then there's a lot of other things that I look at, and I will probably do more videos, more like educational type videos, just showing you the basics of what are transits, what are aspects, what is more of like the Lord of the Year, and I'll get a little bit into that, but just like, some basics. Okay, so so what I'm doing when I'm looking at a chart, first of all, I'm looking at the lay of the land. You have the sun, moon, rising, whatever. I look at the rest of the planets. I look at what they're doing, how they're communicating to each other. But then looking at the transits, you can use a computer program, or you can use like a ephemeris. And I have a big ephemeris, but it's like so big and heavy, I don't like to bust it out that much. But it goes like for 100 years. And that is very helpful because you can look back in time and you can look forward in time and find every moment when the planets will be at any particular spot in the sky at any degree, and it's very helpful. It's painstaking, but it's helpful. But I like these little books because I have like little ephemerises in the ephemerides, I don't know what the plural is of that, in the back, so I can just easily pick it up. And this is a Honeycomb Collective planner, and if you don't know what this is, they're amazing. I'll probably do a video on that too. It's basically like a planner. I mean, here's like all of my things, all my notes here. It shows you the transits, it shows you what is happening to your placements in your chart, and it's all based on your time zone, and it just goes into so much detail. But if you have one and don't know how to use it or read it, then I would like to help you do that also, because a lot of people have told me they bought one but they don't know how to use it. So I could totally help people, and if you are one of those people, let me know. So back to the ephemeris in the back. I should pull it up on the screen, but like you can see there's probably a lot of details in there, a lot of numbers. So what does that mean? I can just look and see where the planets are and say, oh, it's at 5 or 1 degree of Virgo or something like that. So looking at, let's just say my chart, let's just say I'm looking at my chart, and I notice that in September I will have some transits to some pretty important points. So I need to make like 10 videos to even do the backstory of this, but let's just pretend you know what I'm talking about, or maybe you do know what I'm talking about. But there's some very important points in a chart that are more highlighted than the other points. So that would be the ascendant, the descendant, the MC, the midheaven, or the IC. So it's kind of this two axes. Wow, we're really having plural issues today. So those are very important points, and when I see something happening there, it catches my eye, or other transits, and I'll go into that. So I see something in September happening. Well, first off, in the beginning of September 1st, Mercury in the sky, moving through the sky, will conjoin my Pluto, and then it will square my Saturn. Okay, so I won't go into really what that means. As far, you could easily Google what that means. I could tell you, but what I'm looking at when I look at these transits, there's big outer planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto that move very slowly, that are almost like years or seasons of it's sitting in the same sign or on the same degree, for in some cases like Pluto, for a long time. We're talking months, years. So I'm not really going to hone in on that immediately. What I will look at are more the faster moving planets that, like obviously the moon, which moves 2.5, every 2.5 days it goes through a sign. So it's very quick. The sun, which moves a degree a day in a sign. So it's like the sun is in Virgo now. It's in whatever it is, 1 degree, 2, 3. Each day it moves a degree. That's pretty fast. But then you have Mercury, Venus, and Mars, which are also the quick moving planets. And Mercury, Venus move about maybe 3 weeks through a whole sign. And Mars is about maybe 4 or 5 weeks or something in its normal cycle without a retrograde happening. That's how they move. Okay, so that's fast. That's going to tell me like different information, because I can see that something is moving through quickly, and it's usually doing an annual sweep through everything. So it's like the sun coming through, making a an aspect to one of my natal planets. It happens every year on that same day, or right around the same day, because the sun is like clockwork. It's going to hit that same degree of 5 Virgo every year at the same time. So when I see something like, Mercury in the sky will be conjoining my Pluto and squaring my Saturn, because I have a tight Saturn-Pluto square. So they're being hit one after the other. Mercury's moving through, going from 4 Libra to 5 Libra to 6 Libra. So it's like, here I am sitting on your Pluto, and in 2 days I am exactly squaring your Saturn. When I see that, it tells me that other quick moving planets, these personal planets, are going to be hitting that too. Because if Mercury is in Virgo, what else is? And I'm like, okay, the sun is in Virgo, so the sun's going to go through. And it just so happens that Mars is in Virgo right now too. So I can look forward and say, if I'm reading for someone, if it wasn't my chart, if it's someone else's chart, and I'm looking at it going, Mercury is making this exact conjunction to Pluto and then squaring your Saturn, this is going to be a time where your mind and your thinking and speech and interactions on like a mental level are going to be engaged in this way, kind of intense ways. And also knowing that, okay, Mercury is about to go retrograde. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's just keep that in mind, though, because it's going retrograde in in Libra, but it's not there yet. So let's just keep that in mind and move on to the next thing. So I noticed that right off the bat of like early September, let's say, and I'm just looking at transits. And you can do this on a computer. It's so easy. But so I'm looking at the transits going, okay, that's interesting. Mercury sweeping through that square and, making contact to it. Then by the 3rd week of September, we're having that same kind of thing impact, but it's a different planet now. So Mars will be conjoining my Pluto and squaring my Saturn. Interesting. So it's kind of like the same theme is being kicked up again, but through a different lens, through a different actor. If Mercury is brainy and oriented with like speech and thought and writing and speaking, Mars is about action and activity and will and determination and aggression, possibly. So this is coming through again, same point, but a little bit different now because it's Mars's take. It's like if they were actors in a movie, Mercury is the brainy, nerdy kind of guy that is like a computer hacker dude or something, and then Mars comes through and it's like this warrior guy, like Rambo, or I don't know, something like that. He's like this superhero guy with armor and stuff. That's completely a different flavor, but kind of the same theme, because again, it's my Pluto and my Saturn being exactly hit in the same manner, but by a different actor. Okay, so I'm keeping that in mind, and I'm looking at that going, all right, that's something. while that is happening, I happen to notice that Mercury is on basically my descendant. So that's opposite your ascendant. That's so just directly opposite what was rising on the horizon when you were born. Your ascendant, very important. Descendant, opposite of that, is very important too. So when I see Mercury going through in the sky and he's like, oh, hey, I'm basically, nearing your ascendant and opposing your descendant on these days. I'm like, wow, that is really interesting. I will make a note of that. That's important. That's a big place in the chart that should be monitored. Now I'm going to go a little bit more into detail here. Why do I care? Why would I care about Mercury doing this if it's, just another planet? Or you can say, okay, that's interesting, that's cool. But looking deeper into a chart, I could say, well, I see that your Lord of the Year this year is Mercury. What does that mean? So basically each year you have a perfected house that becomes more lit up, or there's something happening with it that could be more on the menu that year. And who is ruling that sign, for me, it's the 12th house. Not very fun, but I won't go into that now. But I'm having a 12th house year, and it is that happens to be Virgo for me because I'm a Libra rising. So Virgo occupies the 12th house. Who rules Virgo? Mercury. Mercury is the Lord of the Year. And so that means that, like, in my chart, I have a planet that rules the chart, which I would say would be, and most people would say, it's the chart ruler is the planet ruling your ascendant. So if I'm a Libra rising, the ruler of Libra is Venus. So my chart ruler is Venus. And that's always going to be that way for my life. It's there. But having the Lord of the Year come through, and this year it's Mercury, means, like, if you went to a club and it's still the same club, but for that night it's like a guest DJ or something, and he won't own the club, he won't be at that club for the duration of the year or something, but that night is his night. It's he's taking over the reins. Or it's like if someone had a Instagram page or something and they're like, oh, it's going to be curated now by this person from another page for a week or something. The person doesn't take over that page, but they run the show for that week. It's like curating a museum show or something, or a guest DJ. So Mercury is the guest DJ, let's say, of my year, for my life this year. So that's what I mean by Lord of the Year. You can think of it as that. He's like temporarily taking over. That is very important because well, it's just important for many reasons, but we want to look at the Lord of the Year, the house that he's sitting in your chart, but also the house that is perfected and, lit up that year, because those things will take on a brighter kind of meaning, like not just, oh, Mercury's doing this, cool, whatever, that's Mercury. But it's like, oh, and he's the Lord of the Year. That's very important. If it's like the one taking over the reins of just steering the ship for the year, you really want to know what's happening with him. So I'm looking at this going, let's say if it's a different person that I'm looking at their chart going, oh, Mercury's the Lord of the Year and it's doing this stuff. So it's interesting, it's on that axis of your ascendant and your descendant. Okay, I'm going to note those days around the full moon in September that you should pay attention to what is happening there, because there's a story building, because Mercury's about to go retrograde. And when he goes retrograde the next week, the end of the September, he will be by, October 2nd in that same position again. So he's going forward, he hits that point of your ascendant descendant, and then as he turns retrograde, he's going to back over that point again. And that is like the time of saying, okay, what is really going on? We have to unravel something here, because it's being looked at again for a second time. It's very important, and it's extra important because it's the Lord of the Year. So you're going to really, if I was telling this to someone, I would say you are going to want to pay attention to the full moon time when Mercury is making that first pass, because then he's making a second pass while retrograde at the beginning of October. And then if we bring it forward and look at the ephemeris or the computer program, you can see, where does Mercury go from there? He's going to retrograde back. He will make a conjunction with the sun. And then by, let's see if that's the beginning of October, by the beginning of November, he will be in forward motion and pass for a third time over that place. And that's interesting. I would tell someone, I would watch the first time what is being set up. What is on the menu there? The second time when he's retrograde, October 2nd or whatever, what is really the meat of the issue here, and what do we have to look at? Because there's something that's being highlighted greatly. So let's really get into it. You'll know what it is by then, but here's a brief look at what will be coming. Will be around the full moon point when it first goes over that. The second point is more of like, now we're really into it. We're really into the second act of the play. And by the time Mercury goes direct after meeting the sun in his usual cycle, Mercury will go direct and then touch that point again in direct motion, going forward and leaving the sign of Libra. So that third and final pass is usually like a wrap up, or it's like maybe not the climax, but like more of a, everything's cool, but okay, now we figured it out. Now, whatever it was to begin with and the meat of the issue, we've really cleared it up, and I'm just taking care of whatever it was in Mercury's sense, like whatever it was that kind of went off the rails to begin with. And now I've cleared it up, or we've cleared it up, whatever it is, and it is healing, and it's on its own now. And Mercury continues on and goes into the sign next. So I would tell someone, like, just by looking at the transits right there, that Mercury's doing this. Mercury's the Lord of your year. I would pay attention to that a lot. So let's get back to what else is happening in the middle of the month of September. This is just like a couple of things happening. This is why like doing a reading is very, I could talk for an hour or more about just looking at a month of someone's transits and what it means for their chart. But so I'm just focusing on things that are going to be coming up again with these quick moving planets, because I'm seeing that, okay, remember in the beginning of September, Mercury hit that square that I have, exact conjunction with Pluto, and then exact square to Saturn. And then we're coming in here to the middle of the month. And we see Mars, the warrior, now coming through and hitting that place of Pluto and Saturn. Okay, so that's interesting. That Pluto and Saturn spot is getting lit up again. And there is, again, a theme of something building here. Mercury, the brainy nerd guy coming through, not guy or girl. And, then Mars, the warrior, coming through on that same spot. I'm going to pay attention to, or I would tell someone to pay attention to what the first thing happened around that time was. Maybe pay attention, journal, look at emails, look at what you post on social media, see what your interactions were, make a note of that, because then Mars will be coming through and hitting that same spot. Okay, interesting. By that point, we should probably start to see a repetition. And that's really what astrology is. It's repetitions and patterns where you can say, I saw, you could even go back years and look at things and just say, I saw what that was. I know what this is, because I'm starting to see a theme here. When this happens, these themes come up, or this issue comes up. It might not be exactly the same, and it won't be exactly the same, but it will be like, oh, my feelings of whatever, my childhood wound or something, or that's going to make me want to fight higher powers that are keeping people oppressed, or whatever it is. You can start to recognize it and go, oh yeah, it's that thing again. So that thing again is happening in the middle of the month there. And then if I was looking at someone's chart looking at this, I would say, and because these things are all moving through early Libra here, then the sun, once the sun gets into early Libra, it will be conjoining my Pluto and then squaring my Saturn. So we're doing Mercury doing that, Mars doing that, and the next week later, Sun doing that. There's like such a building theme here that I would tell someone, you know, I would obviously tell them what this all means, but I would, start to look at a pattern that way and start to see some things building, like waves coming through. Like, when you have one thing and that theme will be kicked up, just to know, hey, in 3 weeks, that same theme will be kicked up, but through the lens of the warrior now, and action and possibly anger. Then we're going to be seeing it through the lens of the sun and like your big story or what you're trying to do, your plot line throughout life. And, talk about that. So I can tell people by looking at just a few transits there, I can see what these, what will be on the menu for September for you. And then also looking at something like the Lord of the Year, saying, what is the Lord of the Year doing? What is happening to the Lord of the Year from the transits happening to it? And are there any planets located maybe in the house that's the perfected house of the year, or anything like that? Just looking at Lord of the Year stuff, looking at basic transits, touching points that seem important, looking at things that look extra important because they're being hit on again, and it's like a variation on a theme. So that's how I basically look at stuff. And then going from there, there's so many other things. I mean, I could go through, then you could zoom way out and say, okay, well, if Mercury is going to be the Lord of the Year for the entire year, and let's say my birthday was June, we're only fourth of the way through it, by the throughout the rest of the year, what else are we going to be seeing as far as Mercury stuff? So I could zoom way out with an ephemeris or with a computer program and look at, like, does anything crazy happen with your Mercury, or does anything crazy happen to Mercury in the sky during this year that I want to know about, because those are going to be highlighted points. So I would look at that, find whatever I can find, and tell the person, hey, these weeks here or this day or a couple months might be colored by this stuff happening. I would also go through and just look again at like other transits of other planets and like see, hey, this is going to be happening on your sun or opposing your sun or something big like that. And I will get into the aspects in another video because potentially nobody knows what I'm talking about right now. Maybe a lot of you do. I don't know. Maybe no one's even watching this, but I do want to start providing more like educational videos of like what is really going on here than me just sitting here week after week telling people, Mars is opposing, Neptune, and for you this will mean this. And I want to just show people what's happening because I can really teach people the basics and like have, give some help in that realm. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to say for right now. Just like looking at repetition, looking at patterns. You can even go back in time and look at the patterns. You can, and then start to see, what did we see the last time that this happened? Because this will be happening again. You can, with the larger transits, like bigger, slower moving planets like the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, whatever, you can see a bigger picture over a large scale swath of time. And, that's insane. And then you can also see bigger pictures happening through cycles that happen. Like, so if Venus goes retrograde every so often, and it happens to be on your sun, like it does on mine at a certain time of her cycle, she will retrograde very close to my sun in Gemini. And I saw what happened then at that time in 2004. I saw what happened when that happened in 2012. And I noticed what happened when that happened in 2020. And boy, they all were the same theme. Not exactly the same situation involving the same person, but each time I was like, especially with 2020, I was like, this isn't going to bother me. I know what the theme is, but it's not going to bother me this time because I'm not even involved in anything like that. And sure enough, there it was, recreating the same thematic basically buffet before me. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening again, but it is. So that's basically just a very brief overview of like what I do when I'm looking at someone's chart. I look at big things like Lord of the Year, some transits that stick out, zoom out, look at bigger patterns happening, and go back in time usually and see like what happened here because this is happening again. So that's how you can become predictive with things, where I can't tell people, oh yeah, you're going to break up on that day, but I could say the season doesn't look like it's bringing, whatever the season looks like it's bringing something similar to that time. And it is helpful to know that. I think some people think that, but that's why they get astrology readings or they don't. And that's perfectly fine. I understand. I also just want to say one thing about all of this. When I'm looking at transits, it's not that, Mars is coming through and doing this stuff and making things happen. I don't really see it that way. I see it not as causal. I see it as Mars is coming through and doing that. So what the planet is really doing is a mirror. It's standing there as a mirror showing us, yeah, this is happening. It's kind of like if you go to the doctor and you're like, my shoulder really hurts. And then they do an x-ray and they're like, yeah, you fractured your shoulder. So it's like the x-ray is not making you have the pain or making you, the injury happen. The x-ray is just merely a mirror kind of showing you, yeah, it's corroborating that you are having this happen. And here it is, so it's like, if we think of it in that way, it's not like this stuff is happening because this planet is like beaming things at me and making things happen. It's more like things are happening in life, and the seasons of life are being mirrored by these planets. It's like a cosmic mirror. So that's what I want to say. I also wanted to say, yes, I do readings because people think I don't. And I'm like, oh God, I really have to like say this. I thought people just knew that I did that, but I'm just like, I have to get on that and say that often and remind people that I do readings, and I can put a link below to, just my email or, email works. And then I also wanted to say, please share, subscribe, or like, because it really helps me. I'm trying to get this whole thing going to get just other stuff on this channel. I want to get more people on the channel and continue doing the astrology, but I want to also branch out and do these other videos where I interview people who are doing extraordinary things in the world, who do not get recognition usually because they're operating under the they're not famous, they're not rich. I want to focus on those people doing these things. So I have some plans here, and it would help me a lot if you would subscribe or like, and that's what I wanted to say for this week, and I'll be back next week with maybe, I think, a new moon kind of roundup, because we're going to have the new moon. I might go into that, or maybe another just educational roundup of what do these aspects mean? What are aspects? I mean, just starting at the basics. Okay, so that is what I have to say, and I will be back next week. All right.